I have come to realize that some lies don't come with warning signs. Occasionally, they masquerade as jokes, cloaked in the guise of harmless amusement. People often say something shocking, and when they see a reaction, they laugh it off, labeling it as a prank. However, not everything labeled a joke is genuinely funny, and some so-called pranks can reveal a person's true feelings about you. I learned this lesson in a painfully harsh way on what was meant to be the happiest day of my life. I was in a relationship with a woman named Anne for over a year. I truly believed she was the one. Our relationship went through the typical ups and downs, filled with the usual disagreements that every couple experiences. If you had asked me back then, I would have insisted that Anne was everything I wanted. It felt as though we understood each other on a level that most couples don't. I loved her in a way that made her flaws seem insignificant. That's how I believed love should work. You don't just choose someone for their good qualities. You choose to love them wholly, flaws and all. When I proposed to Anne, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. I had contemplated it thoroughly. I was serious about her and wanted a future together. The moment she said yes, I felt like I was embarking on a new chapter in my life, one for which I was fully prepared. I wasn't one of those people who believed in prolonged engagements. If you know you want to marry someone, why wait? So, shortly after the engagement, we began planning the wedding. I wanted to make her my wife as soon as possible, and she seemed just as eager, or so I thought. As the wedding day approached, I found myself torn between excitement and nerves. On one hand, I was exhilarated to marry, and because I truly loved her, I envisioned waking up with her every morning and growing old together. On the other hand, I felt a nagging sense of nervousness. Marriage is a permanent commitment, and I wasn't entering into it with the expectation of backing out if things got tough. I was determined to get it right, because once I made those vows, I was committed for the long haul. It wasn't that I doubted or my love for her. It was the realization that this was it. No more me, only us. Every decision, every plan, and every problem would be tackled together, and that level of commitment was not something I took lightly. Yet, despite my nerves, I kept telling myself I had made the right choice, which is why I pushed those feelings aside and focused on what mattered. I was about to marry the woman I loved. The morning of my wedding felt surreal. The sun was shining, and there was an electric excitement in the air. The venue was filled with familiar faces. Family members I hadn't seen in years, childhood friends who had watched me grow up, and distant cousins who had traveled miles to be there. Everywhere I looked, people were smiling, chatting, and taking photos, all dressed in their finest attire. The atmosphere was warm, filled with laughter and joy. As I scanned the crowd, my gaze landed on someone I never expected to see, Vinnie N's ex-boyfriend. For a moment, I thought I was mistaken. But no, it was definitely him, blending into the sea of guests. He wasn't just some random figure from her past. He was the same man she had spoken about with disdain, the one she had labeled toxic and selfish, and the one she claimed had been a mistake. So why was he here? I tried to make sense of it, recalling that we had gone over the guest list multiple times and had even trimmed it down for budget reasons. How did Vinny, of all people, secure an invitation while some of my own guests had been left off? As a mix of emotions began to bubble up, I chose not to show it. This was my wedding day, and I didn't want to get worked up over something I didn't fully understand. I took a deep breath and maintained my composure. Whatever was happening, I would deal with it later. The music played softly in the background, setting the tone for what was supposed to be the most significant moment of my life. I stood at the altar, my heart racing, as I watched and walked down the aisle, arm in arm with her father. She looked beautiful, just as I had imagined she would. Her dress flowed perfectly, and for a brief moment, everything felt right. I told myself this was the beginning of forever. The ceremony progressed as planned. The officiant spoke, the guests watched, and the weight of the moment settled over me. Then, just as we were about to exchange vows, and did something unexpected, she reached for the microphone. Initially, I thought she wanted to say something sweet or thank the guests, perhaps share a sentimental thought about her love for me. But I was wrong. Before we continue, she said, "I just want to acknowledge the love of my life, Vinny." The room fell silent. I looked around, trying to process what had just transpired. Some guests chuckled awkwardly, unsure if this was meant to be humorous. Others shifted in their seats, visibly uncomfortable. My own family seemed frozen, uncertain whether they had misheard her. I turned my gaze to Anne, and her expression confirmed my worst fears. She had said exactly what I thought she had. Vinny was right there, sitting among the guests with a smug smile on his face. I couldn't tell if he had anticipated this or was as blindsided as I was, but in that moment, it didn't matter. Then, as I grappled with reality, and waved her hand dismissively and said, "Relax, it's just a prank." A prank? That's what she called it. I stared at her, a torrent of thoughts flooding my mind. How could I marry someone who thought this was amusing? Did she have any idea how humiliating this was? I was about to dedicate my life to her, and she had just made a joke out of it. Surrounding me, some guests appeared uncomfortable, while a few seemed to find entertainment in this bizarre spectacle, as if we were in some reality TV show. Meanwhile, Anne continued to smile, expecting me to laugh it off and go along with it. I took a deep breath and looked her straight in the eye. "Well, since we're doing pranks, here's mine. I'm pulling out of this wedding." In that instant, it felt as though the entire room collectively forgot how to breathe. The laughter that had filled the air moments ago vanished abruptly. I watched as Anne's expression shifted, no longer amused. Whispers filled the air as guests turned to one another, unsure if they had heard me correctly. The officiant, standing just a few feet away, appeared frozen, waiting for someone to guide him on what to do next. But there was nothing to be done. I had already made my choice. Without waiting for Anne's response, I turned and walked away, not looking back as I made my way toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear the commotion erupting. Some guests were attempting to process what had just occurred, while others reacted vocally. "Did he just leave?" someone muttered. "Serves her right." Another voice chimed in. Yet, there were those who disagreed with my actions. "This is insane," someone said, likely one of her relatives. "He's being dramatic." Then I heard her heels clicking against the floor as she chased after me. "Harold, wait! Please!" Her voice trembled with panic and desperation. I didn't stop because I was too angry and humiliated. "It was a joke. Please don't do this," she pleaded. If it had been just the two of us in private, and she had quickly apologized upon seeing my reaction, perhaps I would have processed it differently. But she had done it in front of our families and friends on the most important day of our lives, expecting me to laugh it off. I wasn't laughing. She caught up to me just before I could step outside, grabbing my arm. "Please, Harold, just listen to me," she begged, her eyes already red and glossy with tears. I didn't mean it like that. But I wasn't in the mood for explanations. I shook her hand off and continued moving. As I got into my car, I could still hear her calling my name. I shut the door, started the engine, and pulled out of the parking lot. That was it. I was gone, and there was no turning back. As I drove back to my apartment, the calls started pouring in, one after another. Her mom, her sister, even a couple of mutual friends were trying to reach me. My phone vibrated incessantly. The text began with the usual, "Harold, please pick up. It was just a joke, baby. You know I love you, right?" But as the hours wore on, the tone changed. She transitioned from apologizing to becoming defensive. "I can't believe you embarrassed me like that. How could you walk out like that?" Then, like clockwork, she returned to pleading, "I swear I didn't mean it that way. Please talk to me." I didn't respond to any of them. Soon, her family got involved. Her mother left a voicemail, her tone overly sweet. "Harold, sweetheart, I know you're upset, but this is just a misunderstanding. And loves you, call me back." Her sister attempted to guilt-trip me. "Do you really want to throw everything away over one mistake?" Even her father, who had barely spoken to me before, chimed in, "Be a man, Harold. Work this out." But none of them understood my perspective. None of them felt the gut-wrenching pain of hearing their fiancée declare another man the love of her life at their own wedding. That night, I sat in my apartment, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. Instead of breaking down, I felt numb. It was then that I decided to do something I should have done long ago. I began digging. if and could play games. I wanted to see just how long she had been doing so. I scrolled through her social media, searching for anything I might have missed. That's when I discovered it. Vinny had been reacting to her posts for months, liking pictures, leaving heart emojis, and commenting on her stories, and had been responding. Not just liking his comments, but engaging with them, laughing at his jokes, and sending playful replies. Nothing overtly incriminating, but enough to make me feel foolish. This was the same guy she had insisted was a mistake, the one she swore she regretted ever dating. So, why was she still in contact with him? The more I scrolled, the more it clicked. She had kept him at arm's length, close enough to maintain a connection, but far enough to keep me in the dark. The worst part was that if she hadn't pulled that stunt at the wedding, I might have gone my whole life without realizing the truth. There was no solid proof they were involved again, but honestly, at that point, I didn't need it. I had all the answers I required. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees, trying to process everything. What struck me most was the utter disregard for what that moment represented to me. Marriage isn't a high school game where pranks are acceptable. It's about trust and having each other's backs in front of the world. If she could act this way publicly, what might she be capable of behind closed doors? I shook my head, exhaling sharply. I had dodged a bullet, no doubt about it. If I had gone through with that wedding, I would have spent my life walking on eggshells, wondering when the next joke would come, and when I would be the punchline of some twisted sense of humor. That wasn't love. It was humiliation disguised as playfulness. If she truly loved me, she would never have risked hurting me like that, even for a moment. Love isn't just about feelings. It's about respect. And respect means recognizing where the line is and never crossing it. As I sat there, my phone lit up again. This time, it wasn't Ann, it was my friend Jason. I let it ring for a moment before answering. "Man," he said the instant I picked up, "you did the right thing." His voice was firm, without hesitation. I didn't need anyone to validate my decision, but hearing it from someone who knew me, who saw what I did, made it all the clearer. I had walked away from something that could have cost me my peace, my dignity, and possibly my future. Now, I want to leave you with 2 lessons I learned from this experience. First, love without respect is merely an illusion. You can love someone with your entire heart, be ready to give them everything, and believe in them wholeheartedly. But if they don't respect you, if they don't value your dignity, feelings, or presence, then that love isn't real. It's an illusion you created for yourself, hoping that love alone will hold everything together. But it won't. Love without respect is like a beautiful house without a foundation. It might look stunning from the outside, but when a storm comes, it collapses. That's exactly what happened at my wedding. Second, if your partner humiliates you and dismisses it as a joke, you don't need a wedding. You need an exit plan. Some may say, "Oh, it was just a prank," or "Don't take it so seriously." But let's be honest, disrespect wrapped in laughter is still disrespect. If someone truly cares about you, they won't put you in a position where you have to question their love for you. They won't play games with your commitment, your future, or your dignity. A wedding isn't a joke, and a marriage isn't an experiment to see how much your partner can endure before they snap. So, if you ever find yourself being treated as a punchline instead of a partner, don't waste your time trying to fix it. Walk away.